In a bustling town shadowed by tall mountains, there lived a businessman named Arjun. His life was a whirl of trades and deals. Known for his sharp mind and wealth, Arjun was respected and envied in equal measure. But beneath this veneer of success, Arjun was restless. His days, though busy, felt hollow. Lately, his concern was not about business but his children. They had been spending time with a man named Buddha, seeking wisdom rather than wealth. To Arjun, this was senseless. He saw their time with Buddha as time lost from learning the ways of trade and securing their futures. As Arjun walked through the town, he heard people praising Buddha. His frustration boiled over. This has to stop, he thought. I will confront this Buddha. Determined, Arjun set off towards the place where Buddha was teaching. His heart raced with a mix of anger and a strange curiosity. Reaching the assembly, Arjun saw Buddha for the first time. There he was, a serene presence amidst a crowd of silent listeners. Arjun's mind raced with arguments, but as he faced Buddha, his thoughts scattered. He stood there, wordless, gripped by an emotion he couldn't understand. In a moment of rage, he spat on Buddha's face. The crowd gasped. Buddha's disciples looked ready to leap forward, but Buddha's calm stopped them. He simply opened his eyes and met Arjun's gaze with a gentle smile. Confused and suddenly small, Arjun left quickly, Buddha's serene face haunting him. That night, Arjun couldn't sleep. The image of Buddha's calm smile lingered in his mind, stirring something deep within him. By dawn, Arjun knew what he had to do. He would go back, not in anger, but in search of something he couldn't name, but desperately needed. The next morning, Arjun awoke with a heaviness in his heart, the image of Buddha's serene smile still lingering in his mind. He knew he couldn't ignore the turmoil stirring within him. Resolute, he decided to seek out Buddha once more, not to confront, but to seek understanding, perhaps even forgiveness. As Arjun approached the place where Buddha was teaching, his steps were hesitant, a stark contrast to the confident strides he had taken the day before. The crowd welcomed Buddha's words, their faces reflecting a tranquility that Arjun longed to understand. Gathering his courage, Arjun stepped forward. The crowd parted silently as he made his way to the front. Standing before Buddha, he felt an overwhelming mix of emotions. "Buddha," he began, his voice barely above a whisper, "I am the man who confronted you yesterday. I have come to ask for your forgiveness." Buddha opened his eyes, his gaze settling on Arjun with an unfathomable depth. The crowd hushed, anticipating Buddha's response to this unexpected plea. Buddha's reply, however, was not what anyone expected. "Forgive you for what, Arjun?" Buddha asked calmly. "The man who stood here yesterday is not the man who stands before me today, and the Buddha who sat here yesterday is not the Buddha who sits before you now." The words echoed through the assembly, leaving a palpable silence in their wake. Arjun stood motionless, confusion etching his face. Buddha's disciples exchanged glances, equally perplexed by their master's cryptic response. "But I have wronged you," Arjun insisted, his voice tinged with desperation. "How can it be that you do not seek retribution or at least acknowledge my apology?" Buddha looked at Arjun, his expression gentle yet firm. "In seeking forgiveness, you bind yourself to the past, a past that no longer exists. Each moment is a new birth for all of us. Who you were yesterday is not who you are now, and who I was yesterday is not who I am now. There is nothing to forgive." But before we continue with the story, please subscribe to our channel for more beautiful Buddhist stories like Arjun's. Now, let's continue. Arjun felt as if the ground beneath him had shifted. He had come seeking absolution from his guilt, yet Buddha's words suggested a liberation far beyond what he had imagined. A teaching that spoke not of forgiving and forgetting, but of the impermanence of every moment, every action. As Arjun stepped back, lost in a whirl of thoughts, the crowd began to murmur, each person trying to grasp the profound lesson that had just unfolded before them. Walking away from the assembly, Arjun's mind raced with questions. He had come for forgiveness, yet left with a riddle that challenged the very foundation of his understanding of guilt, forgiveness, and identity. He realized his journey had only just begun, a journey into understanding the true nature of forgiveness and the self. As the first light of dawn painted the sky, Arjun walked back to the place where he had confronted Buddha. The turmoil of the previous day had given way to a restless quest for understanding. His steps, unlike the bold strides of anger from yesterday, were hesitant yet purposeful. The assembly was calm as Buddha spoke. Arjun lingered at the back, his mind replaying the moment of confrontation and Buddha's serene response. He pondered Buddha's words, "There is nothing to forgive." The simplicity of the statement belied its profound impact. Arjun's mind wrestled with the concept. Forgiveness had always been a transaction to him, an act of giving pardon for a wrong. But Buddha's perspective hinted at something deeper, a letting go not just of the action, but of the very notion of holding on to past deeds. He found a quiet spot near the assembly, away from the crowd, and sat under a tree. The tree's sturdy presence offered a comforting backdrop to his tumultuous thoughts. Arjun closed his eyes, letting the sounds of the morning envelop him. He needed to understand, to find what Buddha's words truly meant. In the silence, Arjun began to see the wisdom in letting go of the past. Each moment was fleeting, transient. Clinging to what had been done, or to the person who had done it, was like trying to hold on to the river's flowing water. Gradually, a sense of calm enveloped Arjun. He opened his eyes, viewing the world around him with a new perspective. He was the same Arjun who had spat in anger, yet he was different now, transformed by an insight that was beginning to take root in his heart. As he stood up, a resolve settled within him. He needed to delve deeper into Buddha's teachings to truly grasp this new understanding of life and self. With a newfound determination, Arjun decided to seek out Buddha's disciples, to learn more about the teachings that had sparked such a profound change in him. The rest of the day saw Arjun engaging with Buddha's followers, listening intently to their discussions. Each conversation opened his mind a little more, shedding light on the path he was now eager to tread. The disciples welcomed Arjun, their demeanor reflecting the peace and understanding he had seen in Buddha. As they spoke, Arjun listened intently, each word adding a layer to his understanding. They talked about the nature of the self, how it was ever-changing, and how holding on to past actions was like trying to grasp the wind. They shared stories and teachings of Buddha, emphasizing how forgiveness in Buddhism was less about pardoning an action and more about understanding the transient nature of emotions and identities. "It's about compassion and empathy, not just for others, but also for oneself," explained a disciple. Arjun's conversation with the disciples deepened his understanding. Forgiveness was not a single act, but a continuous process of letting go and embracing each moment with a fresh perspective. As the day waned, Arjun found himself sitting quietly by a gentle stream, reflecting on everything he had learned. He thought about his actions, his anger, and how these were fleeting parts of his past self. He realized that understanding and compassion were the keys to true forgiveness, both for himself and others. This revelation was both liberating and challenging. Arjun understood that to truly forgive, he needed to let go of his past self and embrace the present with compassion and mindfulness. That evening, as Arjun sat under the same tree where he had contemplated the previous day, he felt a shift within himself. The teachings were slowly transforming him, not just in his mind, but in his heart. He knew he had more to learn, more to understand, but for the first time he felt equipped to embark on this journey of self-discovery. As the first rays of the morning sun filtered through the trees, Arjun made his way back to where Buddha was teaching. This time his walk was not burdened by confusion or a quest for forgiveness, but fueled by a desire for deeper understanding and a need to express his gratitude. The assembly was already deep in session, absorbed in Buddha's teachings. Arjun found a place among them, his heart beating with a calm rhythm of anticipation. As Buddha's lesson concluded, Arjun patiently waited for the crowd to disperse. Then, with a respectful bow, he approached Buddha. "Buddha," Arjun began, his voice steady, "I have reflected deeply on your words. I see now that my understanding of forgiveness was bound to the past, to a self that is ever-changing. I have come not to seek forgiveness, but to express my gratitude for this awakening." Buddha regarded Arjun with a gentle, knowing smile. "You have started to see the truth, Arjun. Tell me, what have you understood? Arjun took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. I understand now that forgiveness is not about holding on to past actions or grudges. It is about understanding and compassion, about seeing the impermanence in ourselves and others and embracing each moment afresh. Buddha nodded, a glint of satisfaction in his eyes. Indeed, Arjun. Forgiveness is about freeing oneself from the burdens of the past. It is about living in the present with a heart full of compassion and understanding, both for oneself and others. Arjun listened intently as Buddha continued, his words flowing like a gentle river, enriching Arjun's soul. Buddha spoke about the interconnectedness of all life, the importance of empathy, and how true forgiveness was a path to inner peace and enlightenment. As the sun climbed higher, casting its warm glow over the assembly, Arjun felt a profound sense of peace. He had come to Buddha in anger, seeking forgiveness, but had found so much more. He had discovered a path to true peace and understanding, a journey that went beyond the confines of his own self. With a heart filled with gratitude, Arjun bowed deeply to Buddha. Thank you, Buddha, for opening my eyes to the truth. Arjun's days began to change after his encounters with Buddha. In his business, where once he had been all about profit and competition, he now brought patience and kindness. This new approach surprised his colleagues, but soon they too began to respond with similar warmth, changing the atmosphere of their dealings. At home, his relationship with his children transformed. He listened more, understanding their interest in Buddha's teachings. Conversations replaced arguments, bringing them closer than they had been in years. Arjun also found new ways to contribute to his community. Using his resources to help others, he started projects that made a real difference. This wasn't just charity, it was about connecting with people, understanding their needs. His actions inspired others, and soon the community started to change, growing kinder and more supportive. But the biggest change was within Arjun. He felt a peace he'd never known, a sense of being connected to something greater. The restless drive that had always pushed him was replaced by a contentment in what he was doing now. People around him noticed the change. They saw a man who was once all about business now, caring deeply for his community and family. His transformation became a topic of conversation, a story that inspired others to look at their own lives. Each night as Arjun lay in bed, he thought about his journey. What started as a search for forgiveness had turned into a journey of self-discovery. It wasn't just about understanding Buddha's words. It was about living them. As Arjun's way of life changed, so did the world around him. His story, once a tale of confrontation with Buddha, had evolved into one of profound transformation. If you enjoyed Arjun's journey and his character development, please subscribe for more beautiful stories. Also, leave a comment sharing what you learned from this story. Thank you, and have a blessed day.